Welcome to Marketers Unleashed, the podcast where marketers break free from the noise and dive deep into the raw truths of the marketing world. We're here to go beyond best practices and uncover the bold ideas, untold stories, and hard lessons that shape real marketing success. From dissecting daring campaigns to confronting the challenges keeping us awake at night, we're unleashing honest, unfiltered conversations to inspire, educate, and challenge you to think differently. Get ready to conquer the untamed side of marketing. I'm your host, Kathryn Strachan, and this is Marketers Unleashed, where we're not just talking marketing, we're redefining it. For anyone who doesn't know me yet, I'm Kathryn Strachan, author of Scaling Success, Building Brands That Break Barriers, international keynote speaker, and fractional CMO for cutting-edge brands. I've spent years navigating the ever-changing world of marketing and have seen it all. As your podcast host, I bring my expertise and curiosity to the table, diving deep into honest conversations with industry leaders to uncover the insights, challenges, and bold ideas shaping our industry. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Marketers Unleashed. I'm really excited because today I have Ben Mills here. Ben is a CFO, and he's going to be telling us all about the CFO perspective and how CMOs can work better with CFOs and how these two C-suites can have a better relationship. But Ben, can you get us started by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background and what you do?
Sure. First, I just want to thank you for having me on the show today. I'm really excited. Real quick on my background, I spent about 25 years in public accounting. I was a partner for 17 years. And I've switched hats now, and I'm running as a CFO, and I'm now inside companies, whereas before I was working with CFOs on the outside. So I see a different perspective, and I'm working inside companies now as their CFO and handling all the CFO responsibilities. And awesome. I'm really encouraged by it, and it's exciting because there's a lot of good things that go on and helping companies grow and prosper. And obviously marketing is a big piece of that. If you get it right, things go really well, and if you don't get it right, you see the ramifications from it.
Yeah, that's good to hear because not a lot of CFOs see it that way. Can you maybe give us a little bit of a glimpse into the life of a CFO? What does your day-to-day look like? What are some of the things that you're thinking about or the challenges that you're helping businesses to navigate?
What goes through on a day-to-day basis in the CFO world is you pretty much have the whole company reporting to you in one capacity or another. So you have a lot of challenges. You have a lot of competing departments, a lot of competing areas, and it's important as a CFO that you're keeping the company all going in the same direction and all pulling in the same direction with the common goal. And that's to help the business grow, become more profitable, and constantly meet its objectives and its strategic plan. So there's a lot of moving challenges, and things come up, and unexpected things occur all the time on a daily basis. Cash flow needs, customers, supply chain issues, all sorts of different things can come up on any given day.
Yeah, and marketing's just like one small element of this. And obviously it's an important element, but it's only one element of your workload. I mean, when it comes to marketing, how do you start to think about marketing budgets and how marketing fits into your bigger financial picture?
When I look at the marketing department, the first thing I sit back and say, well, where's the company going? Where is the company today? And where does it want to go tomorrow? And I think the key for them working with the CMO or chief marketing officers and the marketing department is aligning those two things together. That if we're looking to expand into a new market, if we're looking to do growth, if we're in a mature market, making sure that our marketing department patterns where the overall company wants to go. I'm not going to spend marketing dollars on Monday with a payoff on Tuesday and see it that quick. Usually there's an investment and it takes time to see the return on it. From my perspective, it's an investment that has measurements, has indicators, and gets tracked to see if it's successful.
It's a pretty unique perspective, though. Why do you think that other CFOs maybe see it as a cost center?
I think that happens a lot in companies, and I've seen it a lot over the years, is because there's a mismatch of what the marketing department's doing and where the company is going. It doesn't line up in the same direction. I also don't think that there's a common communication going on between the marketing department and the CFO. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities that they're not speaking clearly to each other. And there's a misunderstanding of what the marketing is doing And there's not clear metrics to evaluate it. There's no follow through with it. There's no revisiting it on how it worked or didn't work. So I think that's why a lot of them view it as an expense item. A lot of them view it as a place that they can always just cut from, because they're not taking the time to look at it as an area of investment and really working with the marketing department to utilize it to help grow the business, help grow sales, or just line up with what the business plan is overall for the company.
Yeah, I mean, I've run into that a few times in my career with CFOs, and I don't know that I fully understand how to overcome it. For CMOs and senior marketers listening, if you find yourself in a situation where you have a CFO who does see it as a cost center, who is constantly cutting the budget or making redundancies in the marketing team, like, how do you start to get them on side?
I think the first thing you have to understand it from the CFO's perspective. The CFO is not dumb. They want to make the company money. They want to make smart investments for the company. They want to look at every dollar they spend and see a smart investment. I don't think my views on marketing have changed over the years, but I do think the way you market has changed dramatically with social media, with all the different outlets that are new and coming up all the time. So I would start first with a structured plan that you present to your CFO on who your customer is, where they are, how you're going to measure the return on the investment, how you're going to measure the expenses. What does a good marketing plan look like as far as a metric, and what do you hope to get out of it? And how does it line up with where the company wants to go? I think a lot of times CFOs and marketing focus on things that don't necessarily matter, like how many clicks you have or likes or impressions or things like that, as opposed to much more of a result-driven metric that the CFOs can look to.
Yeah, I think you touch on something really important there. And one of the biggest challenges is getting CFOs to sign off on like the more top of funnel, the more brand building sort of activities that maybe take 6 to 12 months to start really producing good results and ROI, but are very important for the brand's long-term growth. How do you get away from those bottom of funnel metrics and help convince a CFO to invest in some of those bigger brand building activities?
What I would do is I wouldn't look at them as separate. I would look at them together, one being more of a short-term marketing plan and one being more long-term. First, you got to identify who your customers are and where they are, who your audience is and where they are. And then I would show them how there's two pieces to it and explain it's like R&D. You could spend a lot of money on R&D and it could be years before you realize the results of that. And you have to explain how there's a combination of those two things. I've also on occasion seen where people show the competitors are doing it, showing that your competitors are taking advantages of different areas and you're absent to it, and how it's important that your competitors are in front of your customers, but you might not have a presence there. All those things put together, I think, would help when dealing with the CFO.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that work before, where real FOMO of, look, our competitors are doing this, we need to be doing it as well, or we're going to be losing market share, we're going to be losing customers to them, right, can really help convince them that it's the right thing to do. What do you think is one of the biggest hesitations or like fears from a CFO when it comes to investing in marketing?
I think one of the biggest fears they have is being able to see the results from it, or is finding a way to measure it or track or see that it's a worthwhile investment. And I think if the marketing people understand what the CFO is looking for is more of a, I'm going to make an investment, help me measure the return on it, I think you would see a much better result, as opposed to saying, I'm going to make the investment and we're going to have a lot more clicks and likes on our website and we're going to have a lot more impressions on this social media page. Try to connect it to getting more revenue, more customers, longevity of customers, and matching it with where the company wants to go. I mean, if you're in a growth company, your marketing plan might be different than if you're more of an established, mature company. If you're a startup, your marketing plan will be different. So you want to make sure that when you present the plan, it falls in line with all the other parts of the strategic plan the company has and where they're going and how it supplements that and how it supports it and how it helps increases the chance of meeting the strategic plan of revenue growth, of profitability, of expansion. And it's not just a silo mentality of just here's our marketing plan, we're in a silo and we didn't connect it to the rest of the business.
You've probably seen a lot of marketing strategies in your time. Can you tell me a bit about what you consider to be a good marketing strategy and what, on the flip side, you maybe consider to be a bad marketing strategy?
What I've seen in the past and what I try to do now is when you come up with a strategic plan for the company, a good marketing plan works with it and pulls it in the same direction. Unfortunately, often I've seen where the company has a strategic plan or goals that they want to achieve in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, but the marketing plan's on a silo. Because we've always done it this way, we continue to do it that way. And they're not bridging that gap between where the company wants to go and what they're doing today. If a company's looking to expand in a new territory, the marketing plan is going to be different this year than what you did last year. But all too often, there's a misstep there, and there's not that investment to maybe change course. And I think the other thing that marketing has on occasion is if something's not working, admit it's not working, and then change. If the return that you're hoping to get's not there, learn from it, grow from it, and then change it going forward. And don't try to justify it and keep doing it. Acknowledge it didn't work, or acknowledge it's not the right place for your customers, and move on to a different type of plan.
One of the challenges that I run into sometimes is like a fractional CMO is when the company itself doesn't have a bigger vision or doesn't have a sound business strategy. Have you seen that in your line as a CFO?
You're absolutely right. I think it would be tremendously hard for you to come up with a marketing plan and a marketing strategy for a company if they don't have a business strategy or they have no idea where they want to go or who they want to be. And so I think you have to start with general direction of what the company wants to do. I don't know how you would come up with a marketing plan without having any idea of the strategic plan of the company, or I think it'd be a big challenge. And then I think you end up in a silo. And then that's where it's just a slippery slope that they view it as an expense because you're not meeting this goal that they have, but they won't tell you, or no one has actually developed. You just have to mystically understand what they want and achieve it, even though they haven't clearly defined it.
Yeah, and it happens, and it drives me nuts because without that bigger business strategy, it's really difficult to create a marketing strategy. Marketing strategy can help you achieve anything from hiring the right people to expanding into the right market. What about when companies face hard times? I mean, when a company goes through a hard time or the economy does, marketing's often one of the first things hit, whether it's redundancies or budgets. You know, I was just speaking to somebody today at Meta, and Meta's now gone through 4 redundancies, and most of their marketing team is now gone. It's not just smaller startups who cut their marketing team, it's bigger organizations as well. I mean, as a marketing leader, what do you do when the company's going through a hard time or the economy is, and how do you protect your role, your team's roles, and be able to continue to market?
It's obviously a challenge, but I think the first thing that a company needs to do is when they hit a hard time, fully understand what's causing the hard time. Is it their product? Is it the overall industry? Is it the overall economy? Is it something they did? But when they're going through challenging times, like every department in the company, everyone's going to feel some of the pain. But I think that's even more of the time that a marketing department needs to show their value, and their investment can help right the ship. It's not a time to just cut those areas, because sometimes cutting those areas just funnels the downhill slide that much faster. So I think the key is to understand what's causing the downturn and how you can change that, and see how marketing can supplement that or help that. Is the downturn because your competitors are marketing a lot more and they're taking market share from you and you're missing opportunities? You need to get an understanding of that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds logical, but a lot of the times the senior leaders in the company don't know or won't tell you, or are perhaps embarrassed that their product isn't good, so, you know, aren't super transparent around that. So how do you actually get the truth out of them?
You're going to always have those challenges in big companies. I mean, I hate to say it, but hopefully in healthy companies and growing companies, they have honest conversations. Because if you don't have honest conversations, then you're not going to really solve problems. If you just want to put your head in the sand and pretend that that's not your problem, then you're just kicking it down the curb. And okay, we'll cut marketing this year, but the problem didn't go away. So you're going to have the problem in a year. It's just you won't be able to cut marketing next year because you already cut it. So that is a challenge. And I think what you just have to try to do is show them where the problems are from a marketing perspective, show them where the product problems are, and try to show how marketing can help them get out of those problems. And that's why having marketing metrics and having indicators is even more vital, because you can show them that there is value. I think the perception that a lot of senior leaders have in companies, especially if they're older, is they don't fully understand the social media marketing world anymore. And if marketing is giving them metrics that really don't mean anything, that's why they see it as an expense.
What are some of those metrics that you look for in a marketing strategy or marketing report?
The return on the investment, cost of customer acquisition, return on the ad spend. So if we spent $100,000 on an advertising campaign, but we grew in a market area by 500,000 or 600,000, and start doing some metrics to show the return on those. These are a little bit more tangible that I think a CFO can relate to because it impacts the bottom line.
Yeah, and it is about that bottom line and return on investment. But I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges with marketing is attributing ROI directly to every activity. And
Yes,
that's why
I would
you
agree
get like
with
a
that.
lot of measuring of last attribution. But research shows, and especially in B2B, but you always have to have multiple touch points before you get that final conversion. I mean, one of the highest converting pieces of content are case studies, because by the time somebody comes to read a case study, they're not deciding if they have that problem, but they're deciding if they want to work with you. But there's a whole host of activities that have to happen before they get to reading your case study. I mean, they're not going to read your case study if they don't know who you are. One of the challenges I always butt into is, yes, we can show ROI on, say, that case study. It converted 5 clients, whatever it was, but it's more difficult to do it with all the activities that got them to that point where they read that case study. So what about those more top of funnel activities? Do you care about any of those metrics, or are those metrics not so important for a CFO? What do you think?
I think you definitely care about them. I would agree with you. They're not as clearly measured, so it's a different type of perspective. But I think where you have to try to connect it to is, one is a long-term investment of just branding your company, you're branding your product in an area that your competitors are doing, and how it'll pay off in the long run. Some of it depends on what you're selling and what your product is, obviously, and where you are in the market and where you're going. If you're breaking into a new market, a 2 or 3 year plan is much more of an investment to get your name out there in a new community or a new area.
Yeah, and sometimes, especially with a lot of the clients I work with, they're like building their marketing for the very first time. So they don't necessarily have the data and the insights to say, oh, this sort of activity gets us in front of your audience. So often I'm making best guesses based on my industry knowledge, my experience, but I don't have any data or metrics from their end to actually back it up until it gets going. So you're making educated guesses really a lot of the time on this is going to work. And it's definitely more difficult to get budget sign off when you don't have the metrics from the company itself on this works for your particular brand. So as a marketer, some of the things that are highly likely to work, but until they actually get going, it's quite difficult sometimes to prove that it will work before you've actually ever done any of it. For companies who are perhaps building their marketing for the first time and are thinking about marketing budgets for the first time, I mean, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, if they're building their marketing budgets for the first time, I think first advice I'd give them is, what is your strategic plan? And who are your end customers and what do you want to do? And then I would take your marketing plan and line it up with where the company wants to go. And I would look for research and look for where your customers are and who you're trying to sell to and why. I think that'll help support why you're making certain investments the way you are in your marketing plan. But I think the key is, and I think what happens for a lot of marketing departments, and I've seen it over the years, is they end up in their own silo. They don't connect it with the rest of the company. And when they end up in their own silo, then they become an overhead expense and they're not valued the same way. But if they connect it to where the company is going, where the owners want to go, where the board wants to go, because at the end of the day, they want to achieve their strategic goal. They want to achieve what they're in business to do and where they want to go. And you want to show how you partner up with them and how this is a parallel plan to help them achieve that. If you just stay in your silo and keep doing what you've always been doing, it's going to get cut.
What happens if you inherit a silo? It's one thing to set it up from the beginning to work closely with the rest of the company, but sometimes you come into a role and marketing's always been siloed from the rest of the company.
If you were hired or you come in and there's a silo mentality, I think what I would say is, why are they bringing you in? Are they recognizing that marketing's been a silo and they're not getting a good return on that, and that's why you're there today? And maybe you have to show them how I'm here today because there's a culture shift. Your marketing in the past wasn't working, and this is what we're going to be doing different. And you have to present it differently to them. You need to show how the way marketing department's going to be operating going forward is different than the way it's been in the past. And going back to what I said earlier, you're going to take the strategic plan, and you're now going to take whatever marketing dollars you have and line it up with that strategic plan.
Yeah.
It doesn't change overnight. It'll take time, obviously, but it depends on how ingrained that silo is. But that's where I would start, day one.
Yeah, and I think marketing often gets siloed because they make marketing sit underneath the CRO. So the CRO's having the board level conversations and speaking with the CEO and the other C-suite.
Right.
And marketing is only receiving that information either secondhand or not receiving it at all. In your perspective, should marketing have a seat at the board level, or like how does the ideal kind of structure look so that you don't have those silos?
I think it depends on the size of the company and where you are in the evolution of the company. And it also depends on who you're selling to and what your products are. I think marketing could play a bigger role in the company than other companies. But I think if they don't have a seat at the table, they should be very tuned into what's going on. And I think it's a mistake not to have them tuned in, because they're a key player in executing the over strategic plan of the company. And if you have a poor marketing department or a fabulous marketing department, I think the differences could be dramatic on being able to achieve your strategic goals in the long term.
One of the things that I see a lot of companies do as well is they invest really heavily in sales. So, they'll have a 20, 30 person strong sales team, but then only have a one person marketing team. I mean, is that something that you've seen in your career, and what would your take on that be?
I've seen that quite a bit in my career, and my recommendation is I don't necessarily think it should be 50-50, but I think there should be a correlation between the size of the marketing department and the sales team to the overall company. Depending on the company, that I would probably want marketing to be a little bigger than 20-to-1 ratio or 30-to-1 ratio. And it also depends on you're selling and who your customers are. If you're a B2B business, or if you're selling to end users and customers, your marketing department could vary, and how you market could vary. So the size of the department can fluctuate. I've met with some small businesses that have 4 or 5 people in their marketing department, because to them, that's a big part of what they're doing. So I'm saying under 20 million, under 25 million, but they have a sizable marketing department, and because that's a key function that they view it as a necessity to grow the business.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to put marketing in place first before sales, because it creates a demand that then gives the sales team something to work with. I mean, if you put in a really strong sales team first and then you don't invest in marketing, yeah. I mean, you end up with a sales team that doesn't have any inbound leads, so are having to go out and hit the ground running and really pound the pavement, which makes their job so much more harder.
I mean, nobody's heard of them. There's nothing out there in the community from a marketing perspective, so they're actually building it. And then it becomes a very fragmented piece, because now you just have a random group of people trying to do sales and marketing at the same time. And it's not a structured method of how you're going to the market. You have a fragmented 20 random people selling and marketing the company at the same time, probably giving 20 different messages on what the company does and how they do it, as opposed to one unified message. And I think that's inefficient, and it wouldn't make sense to me.
If you do find yourself with a CFO who maybe doesn't believe in marketing or is not super easy to work with, how can you maybe get them on board? What advice would you have for CMOs listening on how they should work with their CFO?
What I would try to do is break it down into terminology and things that the CFO is going to understand. Because like I said earlier, they want to make good investments. They're sitting in that seat to make good investments with the dollars they have. And if you can do that, I think you would have a better chance of success in getting the budget through. Because I don't think a lot of CFOs right now maybe fully understand the social media marketing that much anymore. If they're not even on social media, don't assume that they understand the importance of some of that stuff.
And they'll bring in an agency or make a junior marketing hire, do something like that, not get the results that they want. And it takes 2 to 3 times of them falling on their face for them to really realize the value of a marketing strategy. But then at that point, they've been burnt a couple of times. So then they're even perhaps a little bit more resistant and have a little bit of a mistrust of marketing when they do realize that they do need to properly invest in it for it to achieve the right results. And it's quite a difficult situation to be put in, because you're already coming into a place where they're a little distrustful.
You're inheriting already a thought process that marketing doesn't work, or it's not worth the investment. And that is a challenge. And often I've seen it where they'll hire a junior marketing person, and that person, for whatever reason, doesn't accomplish the goals that they want, or they hire an advertising marketing company to do it and they don't achieve it. And they're quick to blame the marketing company, as opposed to really looking, could it be other things as well?
9 times out of 10, it's because they don't have a larger strategy. So if you don't have a larger marketing strategy, it's impossible to know who you need or what you need.
Exactly.
I mean, and they'll often bring in junior marketers because of they're trying to save costs. They're trying to do it cheaply, but they don't have anybody to actually nurture or support that junior marketing hire. So they're basically just bringing in somebody who doesn't have the expertise, which is why they're cheaper, and then leaving them to their own devices, which I think is morally wrong on so many levels. You wouldn't hire a junior finance person and expect them to perform at the same level as a CFO. So why do you hire a marketing executive and expect them to perform at the same level as a CMO? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I think often because they're hesitant to invest properly at a more significant level, they want to try something smaller, but without that bigger strategy, without that bigger vision, that something smaller is never really going to work. Or the other challenge that I see them do quite often is they try something once and then say it doesn't work. If you publish one blog, yes, it's not going to work. You go to the gym once, yeah, you didn't lose weight. A lot of these things in marketing are about consistency and having more of a long-term vision and sticking to that plan so that you do get the end results. But yeah, it's difficult at that early stage to get them to see that sometimes.
Yeah, especially nowadays. I think with social media, I think some people think, oh, if I post something on Monday, I should see results on Tuesday. And like you said, it takes time. It just doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's very easy to blame marketing people, whether it be a junior or a company, without fully understanding why a strategic plan didn't work. And if they don't properly invest, like you said, you hire a junior, you're going to get what you hire. And yeah, you saved an extra couple of dollars, but what did it really cost you if you're missing major opportunities with revenue, customer sales, and things like that?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for the cost of missed opportunity. And I mean, not fueling your company and setting it up for success. So before we wrap up today, do you have any final advice for CMOs on how they can best collaborate with CFOs and get their CFO, even if they're more of a conservative, traditional CFO, on their side?
I think it's understanding who your CFO is and understanding their views and are they big into social media? Are they not big into social media? Or what is their background and understanding where they're coming from? So when you speak to them and you make your presentation, you can explain things to them so they understand it. If you have a CFO who's more traditional, who does nothing on social media, does nothing really in any of that world, I think the way you would present to them is different than if you have someone who's fully engaged in all that stuff and does it all the time and values it and understands it a lot more. And then the second thing I would do is try to put it in terms that they'll understand and the terminology they'll understand. And that is how it impacts the income statement, how it impacts the revenue, how it can help profitability, how it can be a return on their investment. If you do those two things, I think that'll help tremendously in selling your marketing plan. And then the last thing I would do is find out what the strategic plan is and be able to show how the marketing plan supplements it and complements it and runs parallel with it and works hand in hand, and I'll help achieve that strategic plan. Those are the three components that I would try to do when I'm explaining to the CFO on why it's a good investment. And if they're not working, change. If you discover that something's not working, be flexible and willing to change. I think there's more credibility often if someone says, look, we thought we were going to go left and we realized several months into it or whatever that it's not working. Be flexible to change if you have to. Those are the recommendations I would have when I'm meeting with the CFO to try to get your marketing dollars or marketing budget approved.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. But yeah, it is definitely easier said than done. And your insights today have definitely helped shed some light on that, starting to break down some of those silos and give us some insight into how CFOs think and what your day-to-day is like. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap for this episode of Marketers Unleashed. Thank you for tuning in and diving deep with us into the unleashed world of marketing. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights, new ideas, and maybe even a few aha moments to fuel your next big move. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new episode. And hey, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a review or connect with us on LinkedIn to share your thoughts and join in the conversation. Until next time, keep thinking bold, challenging the norms, and unleashing your inner marketer. After all, what's the worst that'll happen? I'm your host, Kathryn Strachan, over and out.